Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the She Knows Pro Football podcast. Once again, I'm Alice, aka the NFL Girl, and once again, I got my good friend Dominick here with me. Dominick, how you doing today?
Alice, I'm doing pretty good. We had an awesome set of divisional games. We had an awesome set of NFC and AFC championship games, and now hopefully we'll have a Super Bowl that can even come close to matching up with just how good those 2 weekends were.
We had some phenomenal championship games. Both the AFC and NFC games were spectacular. I'm not disappointed by the two teams that made it into the Super Bowl. I was disappointed by the Pro Bowl, so we were not even going to discuss that because it's a waste of time. But I'm so excited for this Super Bowl. You guys, it is Super Bowl time. Here we are. We are finally here. I'm so excited to get started. So here it is, Super Bowl Sunday. We got the Los Angeles Rams facing the Cincinnati Bengals. Dominick, who you got?
Yeah, let's just like I said, hopefully this is a great game. It's weird because of the way it works out where they alternate every year who the home team and who the away team is, that even though it's in SoFi Stadium, that the Bengals are actually the home team. So they're going to get to wear their own jerseys, whichever they want. They decided to wear the black jerseys, which is a little weird considering the teams wearing the white jerseys have actually won 14 of the last 16 Super Bowls. Besides that, we should have let them see the orange jerseys, but because it's an alternate jersey, they weren't allowed to wear it. I just think Joe Burrow is going to have a good game here. I think that Matthew Stafford's going to have a great game here. I don't know how good Jamar Chase is going to do. I think he'll probably be shut down by Jalen Ramsey, so we're going to have to look for T. Higgins to have a big game in this one, just like he did in the AFC Championship game against Kansas City, where he had 7 receptions off of 9 targets for 103 yards. I think we could see something similar again here. Joe Mixon's going to have a good game as well. They ran the ball quite a bit on first down. They've actually been doing that quite a bit this year, over 60% of the time this year, so expect them to do that again. I do think this is going to be a lower scoring game. My heart, again, I think with this one, I'm going to have to go with my head. My heart and my wallet actually have the Bengals in this one, but I'm going to have to pick the Rams to win the game.
I love the Bengals so much. They have been such a fun team to watch this whole season. I am so impressed by what Zach Taylor was able to get out of these kids, and the combination of Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow, having a healthy Joe Burrow all season long, having Jamar Chase there just turned into one of the most spectacular passing shows I've ever seen, or at least seen in the last few years, and I enjoyed it. It's a young, fresh team. It was good to see T. Higgins really take off this particular season. Even seeing what Joe Mixon could do now that there's a solid receiving game there has helped his numbers improve as well. So they've been fun to watch, and even their defense stepped up during the championship game. The Rams, meanwhile, are going to live and die around what happens with Matthew Stafford. Do I expect Matthew Stafford to throw an interception in the Super Bowl? I absolutely do. Do I think ultimately it can cost them the game? I do not, because he has so many weapons. They have OBJ there where they could run some gadget plays with OBJ and Cooper Kupp. They have a solid running game, and they have a phenomenal defense. Don't forget, this is where Von Miller is. This is where Aaron Donald is. This is where Jalen Ramsey is. Their defense is so stout. They can overcome little mistakes that you kind of just have to know you're going to have with Matthew Stafford. I absolutely would not be sad if the Bengals won this. It would be so nice to see Bengals finally win a championship and take one back to that beautiful city. But at the end of the day, I think that the defense you always hear it, and it's always been true of recent in Super Bowls, defense wins championships. And I just feel like the Rams have a better defense. At the end of the day, I gotta give this one to the Rams. Well, you guys, that's our big game. But the night before, we have the NFL honors. And me and Dominick have, since last season, obviously, we have been making our picks of who we think should win and who we think most likely are going to win. We have our own picks, and then we have who we obviously think is going to be who gets the award. Sometimes they match, sometimes they don't. That being said, let's get started with who we think are going to win the NFL honors come this Saturday. Starting with who we think is going to win Offensive Rookie of the Year. Dominick, who you think is going to take the award, and who would you actually pick?
In my case, I think that it's going to be the same player. I think it's going to be Jamar Chase. A lot of people had Mac Jones coming in, and that was, I think he certainly has, a chance to win it. He was doing good for most of the year, but I think he slipped off a little bit at the end where after the bye week in week 10, Jamar Chase just really he really took off, especially in that Chiefs game, the first Chiefs game where he had, 200 yards and all the touchdowns. He just had a monster year this year. He had a better year than, Jefferson did last year, and Jefferson should have won it last year, probably over Herbert. I think Herbert was much better competition than Mac Jones is this year. But my prediction for the award is Ja'Marr Chase, and that's who I would choose as well.
You guys, listen, I know that there was talk at one point that it could be Mac Jones, simply because it typically is an award that they try to give to quarterbacks. We've seen this previously in Justin Herbert. We saw this prior with Dak Prescott in his rookie season, even though technically he split it with Zeke. But in this case, Ja'Marr Chase was such an outstanding receiver all year long. He struggled maybe like the first few games, but then once he took off, he took the hell off. I remember in preseason, people talking about this kid like he was going to be such a bust and such a disappointment, and he was overrated and he wasn't going to turn anything because he just dropping so many balls in preseason. And then the season started and this kid took off. I just love this kid all season long. I know there's talk of Mac Jones. I even know there's talk of Jalen Waddle, who broke Anquan Bolden's record of receptions for a rookie. And those are good picks as well. But at the end of the day, just seeing what Ja'Marr Chase has done with Joe Burrow and the fact that they're in the Super Bowl, that above everything else, Jalen Waddle is going to get points off because they didn't even make the playoffs. Mac Jones is going to fall off because he didn't get as far into the playoffs. Ja'Marr Chase is in the Super Bowl. That right there cemented for me. So I believe the league, as well as I, am going to go with Ja'Marr Chase as Offensive Rookie of the Year. On the other side, we got to pick our Defensive Rookie of the Year. This one is just, listen, let's be honest. There's no one else. But Dominic, I need you to say it. Who is absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt, Defensive Rookie of the Year?
Yeah, it absolutely has to be Micah Parsons. He was a monster. He was a monster at linebacker in the preseason. Then they had all those injuries and everything. They ended up moving him to defensive end, and he was probably even better as a defensive end than he was a linebacker. He's already the best player on that defense, maybe with Trayvon Diggs there now as a cornerback. But other than Trayvon Diggs and him, they are basically that defense right now.
Listen, it's not even close. There's no one else even in the discussion of who is Defensive Rookie of the Year other than Micah Parsons. Micah Parsons came in and they were able to get rid of Jalen Smith. That's how well this kid did, is he was able to come in and take over the role. And the defense kind of, revolved around him. I know that, Trayvon Diggs did some impressive things there this season. And, if people want to make the argument for why Trayvon is one of the better defensive players, but you can't put him on the level of what Micah Parsons has done there. And the fact that they already treat this kid like he has a defensive presence. So absolutely, it's Micah Parsons. No questions asked. Moving on to our veterans. I definitely think that our Offensive Player of the Year, again, this is a runaway, but go ahead and say it, Dominic. Who is going to be the Offensive Player of the Year?
Yeah, it's got to be Cooper Kupp. I mean, to me, he would be the MVP of the year, but obviously he's not going to be because they give that's it. The MVP should be changed to Most Valuable Quarterback because that's basically all it is. This is the real Offensive Player of the Year. This is the real MVP of the league. So to me, it's got to be Cooper Kupp. He had, led the league in receptions, led the league in yards, almost had 2,000 yards, led the league in touchdowns with 16, had 183 yards against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to get his team through the game, had another 142 last week and 2 touchdowns to get him to the Super Bowl. He's just a monster this year.
Listen, Cooper Kupp won the Triple Crown at wide receiver. That's only been done like a handful of times as long as that has been a stat. So understand, this kid is phenomenal. And again, I feel like it's not fair that he won't win MVP because, as the same thing as Dominic said, it's now just more or less just a QB award, and that's fine. But if ever there was a time when we could make an argument for a different position, in particular, a receiver to win this award, this would be that season. And it would absolutely have to be Cooper Kupp. No one came close to the kind of numbers he produced and the kind of production that he had and the kind of season that he had this year. He's absolutely Offensive Player of the Year. And I could even make argument for why he should be MVP. And again, on the flip side of our ball, Dominic, who do we think is going to be Defensive Player of the Year?
Now, the person I project here, I kind of am only doing that because it's kind of like when you don't really have a runaway, just give it to the person who is by far considered the best defensive player, and that's Aaron Donald. So that's who I do think is going to get this award because he didn't really have a super big runaway. The person I would give it to is TJ Watt. The reason I don't think they're going to give it to them, even though he tied the NFL sack record, is because he did miss the first couple of games. He had that little holdout at the beginning of the year. So I don't think he's going to be able to – I don't think they'll give him the award. If they do, I'd be very happy. But I do just think because it's kind of like I said, it's kind of like, oh, well, who do we always give it to? Okay, we always – just like when your grandparents used to vote, it's like, we always vote for this guy. Don't wait, let's vote for him again. It's the same thing here. They always vote for Aaron Donald. I think they're going to vote for him again. And it's not saying he's undeserving, but I do think that there are other players that have had better years this year. And the one that has, whether we talk Trayvon Diggs, who we talked about earlier, he led the league in interceptions, had the most interceptions in a number of years, or if it's TJ Watt, who tied the sham sack record set by Mike Strahan, 10 years ago or 12 years ago, whatever it was now. So I do think that it should be TJ Watt. It'll probably be Aaron Donald.
And sadly, I have to agree with you there. I would absolutely love to see other players in the discussion. Again, like I was saying earlier, Trayvon Diggs, you can make an argument for why he could be in the discussion because of the interceptions that he had this season. Absolutely can make the case for TJ Watt. Even I that would be my prediction, would be that TJ Watt could pull it off because of how well he did. But again, I also feel like, I know it's supposedly we're only supposed to look at the regular season, but they're going to look at how far each of these players got into the playoffs, if they got out of the first round or not. And look where Aaron Donald is compared to TJ Watt and Trayvon Diggs are. He's all the way in the Super Bowl. I'm not saying that Aaron Donald didn't have an impressive season. I'm saying personally, I feel like TJ Watt had the better season of the two. And he definitely had a better season than Trayvon Diggs, even considering all the interceptions. I would absolutely give it to TJ Watt, but at the end of the day, I absolutely think it's going to be Aaron Donald that is going to win the award. Now, this one was a little bit tricky for us, but I think we both came down to this, settled on the same player. Dominic, who do we think is going to win Comeback Player of the Year?
Yeah, obviously, you had to convince me on this one, obviously, but I finally came around to your side. I think it is going to be Antonio Brown. I'm sorry. It's going to be Dak Prescott. I mean, it's not like last year where you had, once Alex Smith came on the field, you knew he had to win it. This year is kind of different. There wasn't really anybody that was really coming back. He came back from a devastating ankle injury, led the team to, one of the best records in the NFC, led them to the playoffs, the home field in the playoffs. They didn't win the game. Unfortunately, they did lose to San Francisco, but he still got them back into the playoffs. He had a great year for him. Was able to show that he still had the running ability, still had the touch on his passes. So I do think it is going to be Dak Prescott, and that's who I would give it to as well.
Comeback Player of the Year. Again, last year was so obvious who it was by how well Alex Smith did. This year, it didn't feel like it was as obvious. But you do kind of have to give it to Dak, considering how devastating that injury was. I don't know if you guys saw it. It was pretty horrific ankle injury that he suffered. And the team really, really suffered after they lost him for the season. And now to see that team make such a phenomenal turnaround, win the NFC East, get themselves into the playoffs. They didn't get far into the playoffs, but the fact that they even got there again was so good for them. And to see the way that the level of play elevated just by having Dak back healthy, you have to give it to him as comeback, because he elevated everyone else on the team, especially on that offense. You saw how much Zeke improved and Amari improved, and CeeDee Lamb improved. Everybody's numbers went up this year because they had a healthy Dak. So, yeah, it's obviously going to be Dak Prescott, both my choice and who I ultimately wins the award. Now, for Coach of the Year, we both kind of feel kind of or who we think is probably going to win Coach of the Year. But Dominic, I'll let you go first. Who do you think is going to win Coach of the Year?
I do think it's going to be Mike Vrabel from the Tennessee Titans. I mean, they had the best record in the NFL this year. They had the number 1 overall seed in the AFC playoffs. Of course, they lost in the first game. That was because Derrick Henry wasn't himself, and Ryan Tannehill had a crappy game. But you can't deny how good he did in coaching after losing Derrick Henry. After the 7th game, they were still able to keep the number 1 overall seed. A lot of people thought they may not even make the playoffs, or they certainly dip down to like maybe the 4 seed and just barely win the division. He was able to keep that thing rolling there. Ryan Tannehill did have a good year. Obviously, they were able to use Dante Foreman came in there. Julio Jones came back a little bit. A.J. Brown finally came on, had a good end of the year. So it's got to be Mike Vrabel is going to win the award. But the person I would choose, again, I know all these awards are voted for before the playoffs start. But in this case, it doesn't matter because everybody wanted him fired before the year started. But the fact that he got from 4-12 to winning the division this year, to me, it's got to be Zach Taylor in Cincinnati. And I would put in an honorable mention for David Culley in Houston.
That's a really good one. Man, that's a really good one. Listen, I have to agree with you again. It's likely going to be Mike Vrabel for what that team was able to do, cobble together such a good season and finish as well as they did heading into the playoffs and everything. You got to give it to Vrabel on that respect, especially considering that they lost Derrick Henry so early in the season and still managed to cobble together an impressive winning season. However, again, I'm more impressed by Zach Taylor. I was one of these people. One, prior to the season starting, I had the Bengals finishing last. 2, I had Zach Taylor on the hot seat getting fired at the end of the season. He was one of my coaches that was going to suffer the consequences come Black Monday. And yet here we are with the Bengals in the freaking Super Bowl. Now, again, I know playoff and the Super Bowl don't count when it comes to an award that's given based on your regular season. But still, to see this team finish as well as they did in that division, to finish as well as they did in the AFC, considering how poorly they did last year and everyone having no clue whatsoever what this team is capable of doing. No one got it. You're lying if you said that you picked the Bengals to win that division. Considering that there's the Steelers and the Ravens and the Browns in that division, there's no way in holy hell anyone picked the Bengals to do as well as they did. I would absolutely love to see Zach Taylor win this award just for what he was able to do and the turnaround this season that they had. But yeah, unfortunately, I think it would. I say unfortunately in quotes, but I do think it is going to go to Mike Vrabel, even though my heart says it should go to Zach Taylor. And last up is probably the biggest award and probably the one that's going to disappoint us the most because we both know who we are projecting it to go to and likely to go to. Dominic, who do we want to have win and who is most likely going to win MVP?
Yeah, I would, like we talked about earlier with the Offensive Player of the Year, this award should go to the best player or the most valuable player, but it's not going to. It's going to go to the most valuable quarterback or the best quarterback. A lot of people think that could be Tom Brady. He did have over 5,000 yards. He had over 35 touchdowns this year, but he didn't really get Tampa Bay back to where they wanted to be. They won the division, but they didn't get the number 1 overall seed, which a lot of people thought they would after bringing the entire team back. That went to Green Bay again, even though Green Bay dealt with a lot of injuries. Jair Alexander, their all-pro safety or cornerback, missed a lot of the year. He finally came back in the playoffs when they got knocked out of the playoffs by the 49ers, but he did miss a lot of the year. A lot of their offensive linemen missed the year. One person that didn't miss and who kept this thing going, had him to 13 wins again, was Aaron Rodgers. So I do think Aaron Rodgers is going to win this award again. He is well deserving of the award. I do think he's one of the greatest players of all time, most talented quarterback of all time. I'll say maybe not the best quarterback, but the most talented quarterback of all time. And he proved it again this year. But the person, like we talked about earlier, that I would give this award to would be Cooper Kupp. I loved him coming out of Eastern Washington as rookie. I've loved him his whole career, and he's just really coming into his own right now. Like I said, the 115 receptions for almost 2,000 yards, 16 touchdowns. I just think that he is the most dominant and most valuable player of this year.
Listen, as much as I would love for Cooper Kupp to win this award, because he had a season beyond anyone else at his position. He was the best wide receiver, bar none, this past season. And saying that you're the best player and the most, again, remember what the award is. It's not most valuable quarterback. It's most valuable player. In particular for the Rams, he absolutely was the most valuable player for the Rams, especially after Robert Woods went down. You saw how much of an impact having a healthy Cooper Kupp. They continued to still rattle off wins while they were trying to see what they had in OBJ. This kid is so great, and I don't feel like it's fair that he most likely is not going to win Offensive Player of the Year and MVP. I know that it's most likely going to go to a QB. Again, as Dominic said, we can make the argument for why Tom Brady in his final season, with the numbers that he put up, with the season that they were able to put together, why he could be the MVP. But at the end of the day, I mean, hell, as far back as like week 13, people are already saying who they know is going to win that award. And that's Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers, for all his off-field shenanigans and nonsense, on the field, the man is still putting up hella numbers. I don't know what's going to happen with the Packers next year, but the season that he put together this year with Devontae Adams was incredible. It was amazing to watch. I'm not surprised for whatever reason as to why they're not in the Super Bowl. We won't get into that, but I'm just happy that they got that far. And I don't know his future, where he'll end up, but yeah, at the end of the day, most likely the person that is going to get the award is Aaron Rodgers, even though I still feel like Cooper Kupp definitely was the most valuable player at any position this past season. Well, you guys, that's our NFL honors. During our, let's say, our little break between the divisions and the Super Bowl, a lot of coaching changes happened. All positions have now been filled. All the openings have all been filled. But out of all the head coaching changes, and even out of all the assistant coaching changes, Dominic, which one would you say was the most surprising to you?
Honestly, I made a joke before we started that the most surprising to me was Joe Judge going back to the Patriots. But I really think that the most surprising to me was Lovie Smith in Houston. I mean, I know he was he never should have been fired in Chicago. He went 10-6 and then got fired, which was stupid to me. But he showed in Tampa Bay after he went there, and he showed in Illinois when he was at Illinois that it's kind of past him. He even said that when he was in Illinois that a lot of teams with the spread offense they use now, it really hinders his cover 2 defenses, which is what he's known for. So it really hurts the defense. That showed last year when they were the 31st ranked defense in Houston. I know they didn't really have the players there. This one, to me, I think it was the fact that after the Brian Flores information came out and the lawsuit came out, that a lot of teams felt pressured to hire a minority coach. And I think I'm not going to say buckled to the pressure, because he certainly is more qualified than Josh McCown, who I don't know why he was even in consideration. But I do think that they wanted to hire, because of that lawsuit, they wanted to hire a minority coach. And since he was already on staff and apparently was part of the hiring search, that's the only reason he got the position. I think if this would have come out earlier, they would have tried to hire somebody different. Because he was already on staff, he was already there. That's why they hired him, because they knew they couldn't hire Brian Flores. But to me, it's still a weird situation there, and I don't know why he would have gotten the job. I would have rather it go to somebody like Eric Bieniemy or even Mike McDaniel, who ended up going to the Miami Dolphins. Would have been a good fit there. I just don't think people wanted to take that job, and he was willing to take it, and that's the reason that he did get it.
I have to agree with you here. Lovie Smith, first of all, most people don't notice there wasn't a lot of talk. Matter of fact, I'll correct that. There was no talk of Lovie Smith even being in the discussion of being hired in this particular round of coaching hires. I hadn't heard Lovie Smith's name come up at all. Not that he wouldn't be in the discussion, maybe say next season or season after, but for this particular round of hirings, his name hadn't come up in discussion. Not in any heavy way. It's obvious he was still out there as a minority coach if you wanted to interview, but hadn't heard his name come up in comparison to say like an Eric Bieniemy or even Mike McDaniel or even Chris Richard, who came up. There were so many other minority coaches that had come up, and Lovie Smith hadn't. I think Texans had circled in on wanting to hire Josh McCown as the head coach, despite the fact that he has no coaching experience at all whatsoever. Maybe in a few years, that was fine, but immediately you need a head coach that has head coaching experience. And that's what Lovie Smith has. Lovie Smith has been successful in this league before. He didn't win a championship, but he at least got him there. And that being said, that makes for a compelling argument. But Lovie Smith taking this job in Houston when Houston is such a dumpster fire. I get why Houston did it. I do. They were real quick to come out and say that their decision to go with Lovie Smith and not hire Brian Flores had nothing at all to do with the lawsuit that Brian Flores has going right now with the league. But come on, let's be serious. We know that that's what it is. We know that right now Flores risked it all and that he likely isn't going to get another coaching shot. It's whatever. But the fact that they weren't even talking about Lovie Smith and then all of a sudden they hired Lovie Smith is such a perplexing thing. And it's so perplexing even more to me that Lovie Smith agreed to it. I guess I get it, because now you're getting another shot. But that team and that ownership and that situation with Jack Easterby and now Nick Caserio is such a dumpster fire. It's so trash. I don't expect it to work out well for Lovie Smith. So I was just totally floored that he took the job. I get that he was already there, so it was just a step up for him. But even still, that's not the head coaching job that I would want to be associated with, especially considering all the things that are going on around that team.
And it was crazy because I do think that this, unfortunately, because it's just going to come down to another minority coach being fired when they shouldn't be, just like David Culley and Brian Flores this year, that he could just be another one and done coach for them this year. Because they really do want to hire Josh McCown, and they know that the optics would have looked really bad, like you were saying, that he has no coaching experience at all in anything other than maybe his kids' little league team or something. So to hire him as the head coach would have been a terrible look. So they hired him, and I was listening to the Around the NFL podcast, and Greg Rosenthal made a good point yesterday when he said that when you looked at the report that Ian Rappaport put out about this, it didn't say that Lovie Smith is the coach in 2022, or he got a 6-year contract or a 4-year contract. It says that Lovie Smith is the head coach for 2022. So that makes it seem like he kind of thinks something's up where it's only going to be like a 1-year thing until they can hire Josh McCown when things cool down next year.
And I 1000% agree with you. They most likely are going to have Josh McCown be like the quarterback coach or something to that effect, so he can gain the experience. He can say that he actually was, on the sidelines doing some, offensive assistant, passing game coordinator or something to that effect, where next year they could be like, oh, see, no, he has coaching experience now or whatever. But putting Lovie Smith in that position, in that predicament, pisses me off even more. But I wish him luck there. I really do. I hope that he's able to do something with the dumpster fire that is this team, starting with what the hell are they going to do with Deshaun Watson all the way on down. That's things that he's going to have to work with and rectify.
Yeah, I hope he either goes like 13-4 and then they can't fire him, or that he goes like 10-7 and they fire him anyway, and then he goes to a team that actually wants him there and that he can actually win with.
Ding, ding, ding. That's exactly what I'm looking for. Well, you guys, that's all the time. Make sure that you enjoy this Super Bowl this Sunday. Be sure to follow me on Twitter at the NFL Girl 320. Dominic, where can they follow you?
You can follow me on Twitter at EnvisionFF.
You can read more of my thoughts on SheKnowsProFootball.com. Dominic, where can they read your work?
You can read my articles at The Athletic, at rotoballer.com, and at expandtheboxscore.com.
That's all the time we have, you guys. See you back here next time.